Evelyn, still in uniform, stepped out of the cab in front of her mother's house, 14 months overseas, and the first thing she needed to see was Olivia through the living room window. She saw the little girl she'd thought about every day, Olivia, hugging Pamela and calling her mommy.
That word stopped her cold. Mommy.
Evelyn, you are back early.
Where is Olivia? I saw her through the window. She called you Mommy.
She is with me now. I adopted her. It was the right thing for her.
Pamela reached for a folder on the entry table and pushed the adoption papers into Evelyn's hands.
The date. 8 months ago. While I was still deployed.
You weren't here. You have no legal standing.
Evelyn turned on her heel and walked back to the cab, her jaw set. This was not the end. She climbed into the back of the cab and gave the driver her hotel address, but her mind stayed fixed on the adoption papers. Before deployment, she had signed a guardianship designation. It named her as the person who would raise Olivia if Brenda became unable.
Pamela knew about that document. Base legal. This is Lieutenant Evelyn. I need advice on a family court matter.
The legal assistance officer heard the strain in her voice and transferred her to a civilian attorney referral service.
Mr. Reese? My name is Evelyn. I am a Navy officer, and I think my mother illegally adopted my niece.
There's a federal law that protects service members from exactly this kind of exclusion. Come to my office tomorrow.
He gave her an address and told her to bring everything. The adoption decree, her guardianship document, her deployment orders.
For the first time since she saw Olivia through that window, the weight on her chest eased a fraction.
This was not over, not by a long shot. The next morning, Evelyn walked into Joshua Reese's downtown office, clutching a manila folder with every document her mother had thrown at her.
Tell me exactly what happened from the moment you left for deployment.
I deployed 14 months ago. Before I left, I signed a guardianship form naming me as Olivia's preferred caregiver. My sister Brenda was struggling, but I thought we had time.
Joshua flipped through the adoption decree, then stopped at a line circled in yellow. Notice to interested parties. Evelyn, non-contactable.
This is the key. The Service Members Civil Relief Act says any family court action affecting a service member's rights requires proper notice. Your mother listed you as non-contactable, but she had your military address.
So she deliberately hid it.
Joshua's pen moved fast as he drafted the emergency motion, citing fraudulent omission and the Escarret violation.
We'll ask the judge to declare the adoption procedurally void. It's a strong argument.
By noon, the motion was on the court clerk's desk, and Pamela was about to receive a legal shock. For the first time since her return, Evelyn felt the ground shift back beneath her feet 2 days later. A process server handed Pamela a thick envelope. She tore it open and read the motion to reopen the adoption.
Fraudulent omission? They're calling me a liar. She's taking me to court. Carol, after all I've done for Olivia.
Her friend's advice was blunt. Get a good family lawyer and don't speak to Evelyn directly.
She walked out of our lives. She chose the Navy over family. And now she wants to play hero. I raised Olivia when no one else would.
Over the next hour, she called 3 attorneys, her voice sharp and unyielding.
I won't let her take my little girl. I will fight this in every court.
She had no intention of admitting she had ever known the truth.
That girl thinks she can disappear for over a year and then come back to destroy what I've built. She's wrong.
While Pamela hired her lawyer, Evelyn drove to the Willow Creek Treatment Center, where Brenda had been living for months. Brenda was waiting in a small visiting room, her eyes red before Evelyn even sat down.
I saw the motion. Mom showed me. I didn't know she adopted Olivia. She told me it was just guardianship.
She didn't tell anyone. Not me. Not you. She just took her.
I was so messed up back then. I thought giving her to Mom was the right thing. I never wanted this. I've been sober 18 months now. I want to be her mother again, but I can't do it alone.
You are not alone. I am fighting to get Olivia back for both of us.
Brenda reached across the table and grabbed Evelyn's hand, her grip desperate.
What do you need from me? I'll do anything. Testify, sign papers, whatever it takes.
They sat together, two sisters whose mother had tried to drive them apart, now aligned against her. Later that evening, Evelyn sat alone in her hotel room and pulled a worn photo album from her duffel bag. Growing up, Pamela had never been warm. Her love was a transaction, offered only when Evelyn met impossible standards.
I was never good enough. Not in her eyes.
A memory surfaced. Teenage Evelyn standing alone in the hallway after a fight, her mother's door firmly shut on her. She learned to steel herself, to expect nothing, to rely on no one but herself.
Olivia will never know that loneliness. I swear it.
She was still holding the album when her phone rang. Joshua's name lit the screen.
The hearing is scheduled for next Thursday. Judge Morrison will preside.
I am ready. It's time for the truth to come out.
She set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. The fight for Olivia was about to begin. The morning of the hearing, Evelyn sat across from Joshua in his oak-paneled conference room. A legal pad and the SCRA brief lay between them.
The SCRA violation is clear. We have her own paperwork showing she knew your address. That's fraudulent omission.
For once, the law wasn't just words on paper. It was a weapon, and she had the right to use it.
Your mother will be on her best behavior. She'll say this was about love. Don't let it rattle you.
She expects me to crumble because I am her daughter. She's never seen me stand in a courtroom.
One more thing. Judge Morrison was a JAG officer. He knows what deployment means. That works in our favor.
For the next hour, Joshua drilled her with rapid-fire questions, playing the part of a hostile cross-examiner.
I was on active duty overseas. My address was in my personnel file. I was never contacted, not by mail, not by email, not by phone. The years of discipline had forged something unshakable. She was ready.
She closed the folder, stood, and looked at Joshua. I am ready. The courtroom was quiet when Pamela took the stand, raised her right hand, and swore to tell the truth. She wore a navy blazer and a soft smile, the picture of a caring grandmother.
When Brenda couldn't care for Olivia, I stepped in. I gave her a home, stability, love. I have photos of her happy at my house. She calls me Mommy because that's what I am to her. Tried to reach Evelyn. I left messages, but she was overseas, and I never heard back.
At the plaintiff's table, Evelyn's hands tightened into fists.
Liar. You never dialed that number.
Pamela dabbed at her eye, a gesture too smooth to be spontaneous. When her direct examination ended, the courtroom felt heavier, as if the lie had its own weight. Joshua buttoned his jacket and rose for cross-examination. Joshua held up an email printed on exhibit paper. Pamela's face flickered.
You wrote to Evelyn at this address 2 weeks before you filed for adoption. Why didn't the court receive the same address?
I forgot. There was so much paperwork.
He produced the deployment orders, the military address clearly typed on the first page.
This is a Navy document. You signed certification that you had no other contact information. That was false.
I didn't think it mattered. She was unreachable anyway.
The judge's pen stopped moving. He looked over his glasses at Pamela.
Are you aware of the Service Members Civil Relief Act, Mrs.?
I am not a lawyer. I was just trying to do what was best for my granddaughter.
The courtroom held its breath. The lie had been exposed, and everyone knew it. Judge Morrison leaned forward, his pen pointing directly at Pamela. The air in the courtroom sharpened.
Ma'am, the SCRA is explicit. A service member must receive actual notice of proceedings that affect her legal interests. Not an attempt. Notice.
I didn't know. I thought if she was deployed, it didn't apply.
I served in the JAG Corps for 12 years. I know exactly what deployment means and what the law requires. Your belief is not a defense.
Pamela's composure cracked. Her knuckles turned white on the railing. The judge set down his pen and nodded toward the clerk. He was not finished, but the morning was.
We'll recess until 2 o'clock. This officer deserves a full answer. under oath.
Pamela stepped down from the stand, her face ashen. Her lawyer whispered furiously, but she didn't seem to hear. At the plaintiff's table, Evelyn released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Joshua gave her the smallest nod. They had the law on their side. What they didn't yet know was what the best interest of the child would demand. That afternoon, after the recess, Evelyn found Brenda waiting for her at a quiet coffee shop downtown.
18 months. Every day I've worked for this.
That's incredible, Bren. But sobriety is more than a number. Olivia needs absolute stability.
I've completed treatment. I have a sponsor. A job. I am not the same person who gave her up.
Brenda's voice cracked on the last words, but she held Evelyn's gaze.
She wanted to trust her sister, but the stakes were higher than anything they'd ever faced. If the adoption is overturned, we could ask for joint custody. You and me, but it has to be completely stable for Olivia.
I'll agree to any condition. Supervised visits first. Testing. Anything. I just want to hold my daughter again.
They hugged right there in the booth, two sisters bound by guilt and love, daring to hope. The path forward was fragile, and neither of them knew if the judge would trust it. The next morning, Joshua summoned Evelyn to his office. A thin folder lay on his desk, the Guardian ad litem report.
The Guardian ad litem interviewed Olivia. Her report is, not what we hoped for.
Evelyn took the report. Her hands already cold, the first page quoted Olivia directly. Grandma is nice to me. She makes me pancakes and tucks me in. I don't want to leave. The report detailed her anxiety around strangers. She had refused to speak to the social worker for 10 full minutes. It noted she had begun calling Pamela Mommy consistently and showed visible distress at separation.
Is this really what's best for her? Am I doing this for Olivia or for me?
The judge will weigh this, but remember, the adoption was built on fraud. You didn't cause this situation, Evelyn.
She nodded, but the guilt settled deep in her chest, heavier than any legal argument. The report had asked a question no one wanted to answer: what was truly best for Olivia? That same evening, Evelyn drove to her mother's house while Pamela was at a church function. Brenda's old room still held boxes of forgotten things. She found a worn photo album on the top shelf. When she opened it, a folded envelope slid out from behind the last photograph. The envelope was addressed to Olivia in Brenda's uneven handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a child's drawing of 3 stick figures. To my Olivia, if I can't be there, Aunt Evelyn will love you. She promised me. Below it, a crayon heart.
Brenda wrote this when she first started struggling. She trusted me.
The date was 3 years before the adoption. Pamela must have found this when she packed up Brenda's things and deliberately buried it.
She hid this because it proves Brenda wanted me, not her.
She took a photo of the letter and dialed Joshua's number, her voice firmer than it had been all week.
I found a letter Brenda wrote to Olivia, naming me as her guardian. It's signed and dated 3 years ago.
Joshua's reply was immediate. Get me a certified copy. This changes everything. 2 days later, closing arguments began. Joshua rose, hands steady on the lectern.
The escrow requires notice to service members. Miss Gardner knew her daughter's military address and withheld it. That's fraud. We found Brenda's letter hidden in a photo album. She wanted Evelyn to raise Olivia. Pamela buried it deliberately. The adoption is procedurally void. The law demands it be set aside, and Evelyn deserves her day in court.
Pamela's attorney rose, his tone measured, as if the law were a secondary concern. Olivia has a home, a routine. She calls Pamela Mommy. Uprooting her would cause harm this court must consider. Pamela sat rigid across the aisle, her eyes fixed on the judge, trying to look pitiful.
I've heard enough. I'll take this under advisement and issue a written ruling.
Evelyn's heart hammered. There was nothing left to say, no more evidence to present. The gavel fell and the courtroom emptied. The waiting had begun. 3 days after the hearing, Evelyn arrived at the supervised visitation center, a bright room with toys and a one-way mirror. Olivia sat at a small table, coloring a horse. She didn't look up when Evelyn knelt beside her. Evelyn didn't know what to say, so she just watched the crayon scratch the paper. On the second visit, she brought a worn picture book, the one her mother had read to her as a child. Evelyn read aloud, and by the third page, Olivia rested her head against Evelyn's arm, listening. On the third visit, Olivia ran to the table when Evelyn walked in. She held up a drawing.
I drew you. See? You are pretty.
Evelyn's throat tightened. For the first time, Olivia had reached for her. The hope weighed so much it hurt, but Evelyn wouldn't let go. When the hour ended, the waiting outside felt sharper than ever. The fifth visit fell on a Thursday. Olivia climbed onto the small couch beside Evelyn, her stuffed bunny pressed under her chin.
Are you going to go away too? Like my mommy did?
The words hit harder than any courtroom blow. Evelyn slid to her knees, taking Olivia's tiny hands.
No, sweetheart. I will always be here for you. I promise.
Olivia searched her face, the kind of scrutiny only a child who has been left can give. Then the bunny dropped, and Olivia collapsed into Evelyn's arms, holding on with all the strength a 6-year-old had.
Don't leave.
She had never made a promise she meant more.
When the hour ended, Evelyn walked out with Olivia's warmth still pressed against her, a weight she would carry until the ruling came. The law would decide the rest. But in that room, she had already become what Olivia needed. That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the hotel bed, the phone on the coffee table, a dark rectangle she couldn't look away from. At 8:15 a.m., the screen lit up. Joshua's name pulsed across it.
The decision is in. Courtroom 3, 9 o'clock. Be ready.
No more waiting. No more visits. This was it.
She dressed quickly, called Brenda, and drove to the courthouse. Brenda paced near the bottom of the courthouse steps, her face pale. Joshua stood a few feet away, briefcase in hand.
I can't breathe, Evie. What if he rules against us?
Then we deal with it. But we face it together.
The three stood in a tight cluster outside the courtroom doors, morning sun casting long shadows across the stone.
Whatever happens in there, Olivia comes first. That's the only rule.
Judge Morrison entered, the ruling in his hand, and everyone in the room knew the next words would change a child's life.
The adoption is hereby declared procedurally void due to violation of the Service Members Civil Relief Act. Custody is awarded jointly to Evelyn and Brenda Gardner. Pamela Gardner is granted supervised visitation only.
The gavel fell, but Evelyn didn't hear it. She was already out of her chair, pulling Brenda into a fierce embrace. They clung to each other, years of hurt and hope collapsing into the few inches between them. Then Pamela's voice tore through the moment.
This is an outrage. She's my daughter. The court can't just erase that.
Mrs. Gardner, you will be seated, or I will hold you in contempt.
Her lawyer pulled on her arm and she sat, but her eyes never left Evelyn. The ruling had been read. The fight was over, and Olivia was no longer hers. Evelyn and Brenda emerged from the courthouse into sharp morning sunlight. Pamela was already standing on the steps, her lawyer nowhere in sight. She rushed forward before the heavy doors had even closed, her heels clicking fast on the stone.
You'll regret this, Evelyn. You think this is over? You stole my daughter. The court can't just erase what I gave her.
She's not yours. The court made that clear.
Stop, Mom. Just stop. You lost.
Brenda placed herself between them, her voice shaking but her body steady. Evelyn turned, slid her arm through Brenda's, and walked toward the parking lot without a second glance. Pamela's shouts followed them, but they didn't slow. In the rearview mirror, she saw her mother standing alone on the courthouse steps, a small diminished figure. Evelyn felt only the road ahead. The small apartment smelled of fresh paint. Evelyn had spent the week transforming the spare room. Pink walls, a star-shaped nightlight, a bed with a soft quilt. Olivia stood in the doorway, her bunny pressed to her chin, scanning the unfamiliar room with quiet wariness.
I miss my old room sometimes.
Evelyn knelt to Olivia's height and smoothed a corner of the quilt.
I know, sweetheart, but this is your home now.
Olivia took a tentative step inside, her fingers still gripping the bunny's ear.
Will you stay?
Evelyn pulled back the covers, her voice steady as a promise she'd already kept.
Always. I am not going anywhere.
Olivia climbed onto the bed, and for the first time in the new room, the corners of her mouth lifted. Small, fragile, real. A week later, a cream envelope landed in Evelyn's mailbox. Pamela's handwriting, unmistakable, slanting across the front. The letter began, "Please forgive me. I know I handled things wrong, but I am still your mother, and I only wanted to keep Olivia safe." Evelyn read it through once, then set the page down on the kitchen counter. Her expression didn't change. She took a sheet of plain paper from a drawer and unscrewed a pen. No hesitation. "Your action was unlawful." The court agreed. Olivia is safe. She signed it. Evelyn, not love, not your daughter. Just her name, the way she signed official correspondence. She folded the paper once, slid it into an envelope, and wrote Pamela's address from memory. She walked to the corner mailbox and dropped it in. The metal clang was the only punctuation she needed. There was no anger left, no desperation for an apology. Only the quiet clarity that the law had spoken and she had repeated it. Inside, she could hear Olivia humming from the living room. Evelyn closed the door softly behind her. The following Saturday, Evelyn walked Olivia to the park near their apartment. Golden hour light spilled through the trees. Olivia settled on the wooden bench, sketchbook open, tongue peeking out in concentration.
Aunt Evelyn, look.
She pointed at 3 stick figures in bright crayon. One labeled Mommy, one Aunt Evelyn, and one me.
She had never seen a drawing that meant more.
Evelyn pulled her close, her throat too tight for words. For this woman, this was the only victory that mattered. They sat together as the sun sank lower, the park emptying around them. The silence wasn't heavy. It was earned. Eventually, Evelyn stood and offered her hand. They walked home together, the drawing still clutched in Olivia's fingers, and the evening light wrapped around them like a promise kept.